And suddenly maybe Coyle can be your 3C and Zaka's, maybe Zaka is still fighting to be the number one center, or he's on the wing. This is like the Charlie Kelly, It's Always Sunny,
Yes.
just like putting it all together. Like maybe this and this and this.
I think we all go into that rabbit hole, don't we?
We do. It happens. Ty Anderson will text us at like 1:30 in the morning and be like, what if like, and we're like, what? But I do think though, I honestly think, he provides a lot of hope in the future, but I just don't feel the need to rush it now. I just don't. And again, if he lights the world on fire these next couple games this week in the preseason, awesome. Then you have a super decision on your hands. But again, I think at the bare minimum, it's been a really successful camp. Again, we're not writing him off yet, but and again, I get the want to have him up here. He's exciting. It's an exciting prospect. Like, you got something here. But I don't. Again, we said it, I think, last week. Providence has never been so perfect for someone. You can't go there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, unfortunate stuff.
Bruins Beat is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name is Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. It's October 3rd. Happy October, Conor. What is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. It was Sunday, the Patriots game. Oof. Bruins can't come soon enough. Thank God. Bruins are around the corner. Celtics soon to be around the corner as well. Media day was Monday, but I know our listeners mainly care about Bruins, which makes sense. This podcast is literally called
Bruins Beat.
Bruins Beat. Before we start, this is a Red Sox thing. I do want to give our condolences to the Wakefield family. Heartbreaking news. I mean, that transcends sports. That amazing guy. I know he's obviously an incredible knuckleballer, great pitcher, 200 wins, third in team history, but as sad, just so sad. Just so freaking sad. And I want to send our best to the Wakefields, because that was as sad. I mean, that was just devastating. When I saw that news on Twitter, I mean, just rips your heart out. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a testament to Tim Wakefield and everything he did, both for the Red Sox and just for the city. Played for 17 seasons in Boston, but also was active beyond that. You hear all the praise from his teammates, which was all absolutely well earned for everything he did in terms of the innings he ate up for this team, the delivering clutch moments, giving up his roster spot in the 2007 World Series, which is a selfless move. Those are things that we've all come to expect from Wakefield, but I think it's a testament to him as a person that you hear all these other stories, the hospital visits he had, the stuff that was unannounced that, people either want to make a big deal of, not because he wanted press for it or anything, but just because it was the right thing to do for this community that he really adopted over the years. So, yeah, I mean, I'm echoing what you said, Evan. It's just devastating for a guy that always seemed to be a constant, I think, for all of us growing up watching baseball. You knew every fifth day Tim Wakefield was going to be out there. And, yeah, it is just a tragic kind of set of events for a guy that meant so much beyond just what he did on the mound. What a impressive legacy to leave behind, though, for a guy like him who I think, is felt in this community beyond his achievements on the baseball field.
Yeah, and again, 2010 Roberto Clemente Award winner, just an amazing person off the field. You never heard a bad word about the guy. Just the hospital visits, as you said, the charity events, just being a good person went so far, and just again, so very sad and sending condolences. I know we sent condolences on Poke the Bear to the Snows, but want to also do that as well.
Yes.
Chris Snow passed away last week. Incredibly sad. An inspiration to everybody. I mean, that was the thing with Chris Snow, like just so inspirational. And we'll always remember him for his courageous fight, and just thoughts and prayers to his family. Anyways, to transitioning to Bruins a bit, big week for prospects. This is a huge week. 3 games. We're recording this Monday afternoon. Conor getting in the season where sometimes there's nothing you could do. We've tried to maneuver the schedule. Hey, should we record Tuesday instead? But then we're missing Tuesday's game. So we said, screw it. We're just going to record Monday afternoon, and what happens Monday night happens Monday night. So Bruins play the Flyers in Philly on Monday, then playing in Tuesday, and then Thursday. So big week of games for the prospects. Big news coming in over the weekend. Alex Chiasson released Friday night's game wasn't super noticeable. And that kind of that was a little bit of a trend for Chiasson. Could never really find his footing. Again, Heinen kind of spoke to it being on a PTO. There's not a lot of room for error. And Chiasson released. Again, you kind of had the net front presence with James Van Riemsdyk. Couldn't really keep up with the pace in some areas. So, I mean, just kind of curious what your thoughts were on a guy like Chiasson.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, if you're a PTO candidate, the odds are kind of against you anyway. And I think you look at just some of those games, as you said, a lot of Chiasson's skills and his impact, especially maybe last year at Detroit, was a lot on the power play, especially the net front guy. As you said, the Bruins already have multiple guys there, not even just James Van Riemsdyk, but you look at a guy like Jake DeBrusk has been in that spot. Charlie Coyle's seen a little bit of the net front as well. Like, they have multiple guys that can step in there. I don't know if like Chiasson was necessarily going to be the X factor in that role. So for him to carve out a spot, you have to show that he can still play with pace, still impact the game at 5-on-5 play. And I just don't think you saw enough of that over his time during preseason action. And again, it's a testament to just the amount of other guys the Bruins have there. And to say the Bruins have the deepest forward core, but whether you look at guys like Dan Heinen, you look at Jesper Boquist, you look at all these younger players like Merkulov or Lysell or what have you that are still kind of in that mix, still trying to make a good impression over these last couple of days of preseason action. When it comes to Chiasson leapfrogging all those guys to then going out and earning a contract, again, the odds are not going to be in his favor going into this camp. And again, you look at just the amount of bodies the Bruins have down there in the bottom six, just wasn't going to work out. So hopefully, thankfully the Bruins are in this spot where they can at least release him now and see if he can stick with another team. Chiasson's been very candid about the struggles of being this guy who's gone through multiple PTO contracts, not having a lot of security and fighting through that. So, he said he's committed to still playing in North America and some, whether it's NHL, AHL. So hopefully he just lands somewhere and kind of keeps on that career, because he has kind of, extended his career by years beyond what I think most people have imagined. So hopefully he does land in another spot in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's only so many spots for a guy with a PTO. And again, I felt like it was sort of him versus Heinen at times. And I just think Heinen always kind of had the inside edge. Obviously, the Montgomery connection. You have, Heinen played here, developed here, clearly a little more comfortable here than Chiasson, and that makes sense. But I think Heinen just kind of adapts to their identity, to this team's identity more than Chiasson did or obviously does. All right, quick second here to tell you about our good friends over at Fanduel. Snap into action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Monday night's game, line combinations. Very interested in some of these. Matthew Poitras, we were talking before. It's Poitras, not Poitras, not Poitras. It's Poitras. It's Poitras. It's just Matthew Poitras. I like how it's just right to the point. Poitras. He is still here. Poitras is still here. Has not been sent back to OHL training. I think the season has started in the OHL, right? Or the training camp started.
I believe at the very least camp has started. I'm not an expert on the junior hockey, but I do know they are in full swing. It's not like they're just waiting and he's going to be chilling for a few days before if he gets sent back down to the OHL. He's kind of going to go full speed ahead of what they have. So he's still kind of in this precarious spot right now.
The limbo a bit, but in a good way, in a very good way. He will play Monday night between Jesper Boquist and Mark McLaughlin. And I find that interesting because it feels like Those are three guys who are battling hard for roster spots. We'll start with Poitras. What did you think of his game Friday? Because, I mean, got knocked around a bit, but seemed to be really kind of sticking in there and staying with it. I know Joe Sacco mentioned after the game, hey, a mark of a young player is, can they still be at their best at the end of their shift? Seems like it's a little area of weakness for him. But what did you think of his game Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty encouraging. Obviously, you weren't going to get the 2-point game like he had in the Bruins' first preseason game, but the struggles that you come to expect for a younger guy like him, who's, I mean, he's what, 170 pounds, but knocked around quite a bit in the third period. As you said, credit to him that he wasn't, avoiding contact, got right back up when he was over at the net front area, got knocked along the board, still kind of got up, still makes those smart plays that minimizes how much of a punishment he can take in terms of moving the puck quickly, shielding himself, protecting the puck, those kind of things. Had a few really solid passes. He had that one pass, I think it was Merkulov, almost had a kind of a one-time chance down low that unfortunately didn't work out. He almost had that game winner in overtime, that backhand shot that went off the post as well, which would have, I think, probably really forced the Bruins' hand, not in terms of like, all right, you got a spot, but like, all right, are we considering this kind of 9-game audition form? Like, that's kind of just the optics of it, at least. But no, I mean, he's still a guy that even if, these challenges in terms of fighting through the physicality are all things we expect, he's at least showing, the ability to fight through that. Now, is that willingness to fight and adapt on the fly enough to warrant the Bruins carving out a roster spot for him and dealing with the, I think, inevitable bumps in the road that would come with a 19-year-old kid every single day against NHL competition? Like, I think that's the toughest challenge, right? It's not just the getting amped for 1 or 2 games. How many times have we seen, Frank Vetrano or Ryan Donato, these guys score like 1 or 2 games in? You're like,
Seth Griffin.
They're here. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you see that skill. And again, that's it. These guys are all talented, but it's continuing that pace, or at least continuing to impact games in multiple areas over 82 games every single day, taking a punishment like that. That's where it gets tough, when you hit those kind of dog days. So, I mean, I think Poitras has been very, very solid. I think he's maybe exceeded expectations in terms of, he's really elevated his stock, but against AHL competition, NHL competition, he's held his own so far. But I still think, barring another game where he takes over tonight on Monday, I still think you're still looking at more of giving him an extended run this preseason. He's, turned some heads, but I think he's still on the outside looking in at the NHL spot. But we'll see how he does tonight. Like, I think this is a big test for him if he's got McLaughlin and Boquist of, all right, we know you have playmaking capabilities. We can stick you with guys like Marchand and Pastrnak and those guys. Let's see if you can drive play with guys that are maybe, bottom 6 NHL players, guys that are fighting for spots just like you. You come out of this game with 3 assists with those guys. It's not as an indictment on Boquist or McLaughlin, but in terms of just where you were to start preseason, then maybe you have something here if you can drive play in that different role.
I like, and I see some of the tenor on Twitter changing of like, no, he's ready. Like, keep him here. But it's like, he's 19. You have the option to send him to the OHL for a year of seasoning. You have centers here. Now, again, do any of your centers have the ceiling of a Poitras? Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, again, like, we kind of know the ceiling on Coyle. Zacha, we're still waiting. There's a good amount of hope there that there's kind of another gear. And Geeky is what he is. They're hoping, obviously, kind of a sort of a progression on that third line potentially. But, if they were rebuilding, it'd be one thing, because it'd be like, all right, see what you got in the top, let him develop in the NHL, which is, by the way, kind of a brutal thing to stick especially a 19-year-old in the NHL, 82 games, physical, guys fighting for roster spots. And, this sounds crazy, but like, it in the pros, especially in the bottom 6, those guys are trying to stay in the NHL and trying to, get their next contract and feed their families and things like that. Like, it's a brutal thing down there sometimes. And going from junior hockey straight to the NHL is a freaking huge jump. I'm not saying he can't do it, but to do it night in and night out, when you have the option to go back, do another year, develop, does not mean he's bad. It doesn't mean he's not even good enough to be up here. I think he is probably good enough to be up here. But an extra year of development, what's wrong with that? I mean, I don't see the issue with it. And you have Coyle and Zacha. Now, again, my guess is Poitras has a good rest of training camp. This is my guess. They send him back to the OHL, has an amazing year, and he comes in next training camp, and you're like, okay, that's potentially like the number 2 center on this team.
Yeah.
And that changes things because you have the cap space. So again, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm getting so ahead of myself, but it's hard not to sometimes. Let's say, yeah, Poitras comes into next training camp and is projected to be like a number 1 or 2 center. And you go out and maybe sign or trade for, which again, you have to figure out how you do that, but we'll see when that comes, a legit number 1 center, or maybe you draft one. Okay. So what if those are your top 2 centers? You got Poitras and whoever the guy is you go out and get. And suddenly maybe Coyle can be your 3C and Zacha's, maybe Zacha is still fighting to be the number 1 center, or he's on the wing. This is like the Charlie Kelly, It's Always Sunny, just like putting it all together. Like maybe this and this and this.
I think we all go into that rabbit hole, don't we?
We do. It happens. Ty Anderson will text us at like 1:30 in the morning and be like, what if like, and we're like, what? But I do think though, I honestly think, he provides a lot of hope in the future, but I just don't feel the need to rush it now. I just don't. And again, if he lights the world on fire these next couple games this week in the preseason, awesome. Then you have a super decision on your hands. But again, I think at the bare minimum, it's been a really successful camp for him. Again, we're not writing him off yet, but and again, I get the want to have him up here. He's exciting. It's an exciting prospect. Like you got something here, but I don't. Again, we said it, I think last week. Providence has never been so perfect for someone. He can't go there.
Exactly.
So unfortunate stuff. Quick break in the action to tell you about our delicious friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut, but keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. There's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. Turn to HelloFresh Market for yummy add-ons and enjoy the season's limited time fall flavors lineup. It's that time of year, right? Things get you in the mood, like apple cider cake with caramel sauce. All the ingredients come fresh, from the crushed tomatoes to the Italian chicken sausage mix to the Parmesan cheese. It's delicious, and I feel like a chef when I'm doing it. What's better than that? And this is a busy time of year for me with hockey starting up. I don't always have a ton of time, so this recipe makes it quick to enjoy something amazing. So join in on the fun. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Now, back to the show. McLaughlin and Boquist, what have you thought of them in camp?
Yeah, McLaughlin's been solid for what his role is. I don't think he's maybe popping as much as last year when I think there was legitimate uproar about him being the odd man out. Again, it ends up working out in terms of Lauko kind of stepping up to that task. But, McLaughlin is what he is in terms of he's maybe not flashy, but I think can be a guy. I don't know if he's got the inside edge to make the team out of camp right now, but if you're got injuries or you want to switch things up on that fourth line, which I think is going to happen, I think you're going to see a lot of different combinations on this bottom six as the year goes on. McLaughlin's definitely one of the first guys up in that capacity. And Boquist, it was pretty solid in, I believe it was that game on Tuesday against Buffalo. He was, really moving his feet. I still think he's better. People mention him as potentially a guy that could be in the running off for 4C. I think he's best on the wing. And again, he's a guy, the speed is evident, can make things happen. Just kind of what Jim Montgomery noted about his game on the road against Buffalo. So he's right in the mix as well, whether it's third line, if he's with potentially a Geeky and Frederick, gives you a little bit more speed there. Maybe there's more offense to unlock, which is what I think they're hoping to get from a guy like him. Could also be a fourth line guy if you're trying to add more speed, maybe less physicality, if you'd rather him over a guy like Greer or Lauko. So he's right in the mix as well. A big step forward for him tonight on Monday would really kind of help solidify his chances, because it seems like he's kind of got the inside edge as opposed to some of these other players, but I'd like to see a little bit more maybe tangible production, or a little bit more of those shifts here or there. You're like, wow, this guy's taking over. You've seen that even from younger players like a Poitras or like a Beecher, where they have one or two of these shifts that really kind of stand out. More of that from Boquist really help his chances of making this team this week.
Yeah, I'm writing down sort of ideas for like the third line. I mean, do you go Heinen, Geeky, Frederick? Do you go Boquist, Geeky, Frederick? Like, on the fourth line, are you putting Beecher or Brown there? Are you putting Heinen? You have Lucic. What about Lauko, who had a great fight the other night? But I want to touch on Beecher and Brown a bit because it feels like those are the two remaining standing for that 4C role. Obviously, Beecher, the young first round pick, looking to kind of get his first full-time spot in the NHL. Patrick Brown, sort of the grizzled veteran who you kind of know what you're going to get, has a clear identity. Do you have any sense where they're leaning?
I mean, I think we'll probably get a much clearer picture after Monday's game. I think because the problem with Patrick Brown, if you asked me before camp started, I would say that he has the inside edge. He's the veteran. They signed him the first day of free agency, even if maybe he's not a guy that immediately kind of pops out for Bruins fans. Really good in the faceoff dot, sound two-way guy. I think was on pace for like 150 hits if he played. I think he only played 60 games, but a physical guy for what that role is kind of makes plenty of sense, right? Has BC connections, helps out there as well. So he's a guy that
I didn't know you could say those words.
Yeah, I know. It's again, if you're tied to any local collegiate program, even one way out in Newton, you still I think have an inside edge if you're a Bruins player. But if you asked me before camp started, I would say Brown would be the guy there, and Beecher again give him more reps down in Providence. We'll see. Like I think it's tough to really grade Brown so far because he only played that one game, got hurt, and really kind of missed most of that game. So if he's out there, and I believe he's skated with Anthony Richard and Justin Brazeau today on Monday against the Flyers. So if he's can make an impact again, just playing, what do you expect? It's the same with Beecher. If he's just turning, causing turnover, making impact on the forecheck, winning faceoffs, he's doing all those little things, then he probably has the edge over a guy like Beecher. I think the Bruins have been pleased with Beecher so far. They still want him to work on his details a bit more. So if you ask me, if Brown doesn't show up today, then I feel like Beecher's continuing to solidify that spot. But if Brown is as advertised, as much as probably Bruins fans want that youth movement, I think Brown probably still has the slight advantage there.
Yeah, it's tough because again, you mentioned it, like what you're getting from Brown, the two-way game, good face-offs. But at some point, it's like you just want to see one of those young guys stick. Whether it be on the fourth line or third line. I don't mean like a Frederick. Like Frederick's a given. I mean a guy that's coming out of Providence, sticking, beating out an older guy. I love Beecher's game for what they want, for what they want down there. I like it. Again, the next thing is making smart plays, winning your puck battles, things of that nature. But again, if Beecher does go down to Providence, it's not over for him.
Right.
It's not it. There's still time. My guess is he will definitely be up at some point throughout the year. Feels like McLaughlin's kind of one who maybe you can pencil in as a 13th forward, or again, like starts in Providence and works his way up. Doesn't feel like there's a lot of separation being created by him. Heinen, again, like Heinen had a good night on Friday, right? I mean, solid night and, seems to fit in here, and a guy I think you could sort of plug in place on the third or fourth lines. Feels like more of a third line guy. Again, maybe my brain's stuck in 2019, but kind of feels like a guy that you'd put there. Again, there's still, even with Farinacci going down, the Chiasson gone, like there's still so many little battles. Greer is down there as well. So again, it's solidifying, but I think that's why these next three games are so massive, or Monday night's game plus the next two related to end the week are so massive in sort of formulating this lineup. One area we haven't talked about at all yet is on D. Mason Lohrei, another strong night on Friday, and he's another one, him and Poitras seem to be kind of the two that everyone's focused on. Can they make it to Boston? Can they stick full time? I think where Lohrei changed my view is initially coming in to training camp, I thought, okay, he's going to need a full year in Providence, full year to get acclimated to the pro game, and then we can sort of reevaluate next training camp. Feels like, again, I don't feel the need to put him over any of the 6 that are there now. However, if there are injuries, wouldn't shock me if he came up in November or December or at some point during the year and sort of stuck for a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he has been pretty impressive. I agree. I don't think he's going to be beating out anyone for a spot out of camp. But as you said, I think you looked at his skill set and how high his ceiling is as a 6'4" defenseman with that offensive playmaking. It's very impressive, but you hear about, how he was during that very limited time with Providence last year. This is still a guy that only recently in the last couple of years switched over to defenseman. Like, he still has work to do in terms of filling out his frame, working on his D-zone play. This guy is going to have the puck on his stick for, ideally, at the pro level, 20-plus minutes a night. Like, this is a guy that still has to work on those things. But as much as I think we were expecting, maybe slight flashes of that offensive playmaking, then a lot of got some work to do there. That's happened, right? There's been some turnovers, stuff that, again, even the best defenseman in the league, shit happens when you have the puck on your stick that much.
Yes.
But I think
I love when people are like, oh, they always turn the puck over. It's like, well, they have the puck on their stick that much. That's what happens. It's a fast game.
It is a game of mistakes. But I think you look at just some of the other smaller plays Lohrei's had. I think he's gotten more confident and better as this camp has gone on, especially in preseason play. He had that one move, more or less being his own breakout, going out behind the net, avoiding contact, like little stuff like that. We're like, all right, if this guy, we know what he can do in the offensive zone. If he can make those plays, and again, doesn't have to do that every single time. Doesn't have to be Paul Coffey or one of these guys doing it himself. But if he can make plays like that, shield the puck, not turn over, making the clean breakout passes, and then does what he can do in the offensive zone, which is you can see it pretty much every game. It's encouraging, right? And again, I agree that maybe he doesn't need a whole year in Providence, but hell, if you get to a point where something's not working out in the bottom part of your defense and Lohrei's putting up 18 points in his first 22 games or something like that, or he's playing really well and is showing growth, then he becomes a guy that at the very least becomes a really intriguing kind of mid-season, late-season reinforcement to your decor, which is great to have. So again, I don't think the Bruins need to rush him. This is a guy that he's not a project, but he's a guy that I think needs time given how unique his skill set is. But it's at least encouraging, I think, that instead of it being like, all right, we see the potential, but it's like Merkulov last year. We see the potential, but he's got a lot of work to do.
He's got tons of time.
Yeah, at least you're seeing a guy that seems like he's already taking a step and is making improvements out of what the Bruins have already kind of mapped out for him. So he is a guy that I would not be surprised if he's in the mix just a few months into the year.
Yeah, again, big guy, good stick. He's sort of raw. Like again, there's still a little bit there to sort of polish, but you're right. I mean, the confidence on some of those breakouts, it's like veteran stuff. That's veteran stuff at times. And I think that's, as a Bruins fans should be very excited about that. Does not mean he needs to be up immediately. And again, you don't, as we've said this a couple of times, there's no point in having him as your 7th defenseman because you want him playing 25 minutes a night in Providence. You want him getting as much repetition as possible at the pro game. So again, a lot of interesting prospects. One guy we've yet to mention is Fabian Lysell, who I find interesting. So again, Monday night's game, we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen that. They haven't showed us the script yet as we're recording, which is crazy. I was hoping they'd show us the script.
Pretty rude.
Yeah. Can't believe the Bruins didn't send over the script like we asked, but DeBrusk, Coyle, Lysell were the lines this on Monday morning. So Lysell will play with Coyle and DeBrusk. Like one of Lysell's first times playing with guys that are in the top 6. I am very curious to see how this goes. What is he like? Is he a passenger? Is he assertive? Is he driving play? Is he making plays? Because again, feels like we're not really talking much about Lysell making the team and maybe going back to Providence and getting a little more season, but I still think a strong ending to camp is very, very important for him. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're hitting a critical moment for all these guys, right? We've talked about Lohrei, Poitras. This is probably his biggest test, maybe his defining one. Lysell's in that same boat. And Jim Montgomery on Sunday pretty much rolled out 2 different practice groups. One was, if you asked me before season, would be like your projected starting lineup for the NHL. The second group was all Poitras, these Providence guys, the PTO guys. And it's like, all right, is this a clear separation? And Montgomery pretty much after practice was pretty saying, yeah, like we're kind of sending a message like this is maybe the 2 different groups. Like it's not over yet. but your guys are still on the outside looking in. As much as you maybe have a good preseason game or two or a good practice, you have to, overwhelmingly show that you can leapfrog some established guys to earn a spot. So I think you look at these two games, and especially tonight against Philadelphia, this is going to be probably the defining test for just this preseason for so many of these younger guys. I would not be surprised if the Bruins especially don't practice on Wednesday, which would make sense after a back-to-back. Wednesday might be like the cut down day, right? We get down to one group. I think Montgomery already said that they hope that Thursday, the final preseason game, will be more of a dress rehearsal. They have most of the guys in place at that time. So we'll see how it all kind of pans out. But yeah, this is going to be a critical game for a lot of guys, especially Lysell. If we know what his skill set is, we know what he can do, he's going to have more, as you said, talent around him tonight. Let's see if he can make the most of it. Because if not, if he's either a passenger or what have you, I have to imagine you're going to see a few of these guys start the year down in Providence, get assigned next day or so.
Yeah, and again, nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I still think that you're right in that it's definitely that's beckoning in terms of being sent down. One guy who I don't think will be sent down anytime soon, David Pastrnak, 2 goals on Friday night. He was okay. Pretty good. Brad Marchand was toying guys around. Good to see the same guy. Captaincy hasn't changed him. Still just kind of knocking guys around and proving his impact again. I don't think anyone's going to question Brad Marchand's compete level ever, nor should they. Anyways, Conor, lots to look forward to this week. It's a busy week. There's a lot going on. So what better place than to go read about it all over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe.
I agree, Evan. Yes, so we'll have you covered again throughout these final days of training camp, preseason, looking at lineup battles, all that good stuff over at Boston.com, getting you ready for the start of the regular season, which is only a little over a week away. Thank God. So we're almost there, guys. We're going to have actual meaningful hockey to talk about. We'll have you covered every step of the way over at Boston.com. So please read our stuff over there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. And remember to go to support our good friends over at FanDuel. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.